Hi there, I'm Sean Dillman. In this video, I'll be reviewing What Color is Your Parachute by Richard N. Bolles with Katharine Brooks. I'll be reviewing the paperback version as well as the Audible. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. In a nutshell, What Color is Your Parachute is a book about finding meaningful work and success in your career. It's for all kinds of different people, including job seekers, employers, people that may want to start their own business, people that just want to find a job and work for somebody else. There's all kinds of different people that this book speaks to, so I think that basically anybody could read this book and get a lot of value out of it. The paperback version is very comprehensive. It contains 11 chapters and about 340 pages. For the Audible version, it takes about 11 hours and 20 minutes to complete it on one-time speed, but of course the beauty of Audible is that you can listen to it on a faster speed and get it done in less time. One of the things that I really like about the Audible version is that the narrator has a really smooth and calm voice, and it was actually a pleasure to listen to him for the duration of the book. I also liked how I was able to go for a walk or go for a run and listen to this book, and it was written in a way that I was still very easily able to understand it, and I didn't feel like I needed to go back too much or that I was missing things, so that was very helpful. So some of the important ways that the Audible version differs from the paperback version is that it of course doesn't include the diagrams. There is, however, an accompanying PDF document that contains those diagrams. So when you hear the author talking about different exercises or different graphics or different graphs, you can actually go in and see those in the PDF. So that's a really great feature, and I really like to see that. And the way that the narrator reads the information, he actually just changes things around so that if he is reading information that appears as a table in the paperback version, he just reads it differently so that you get all of the same information, but you just get it in a different way. As far as the structure goes, What Color is Your Parachute is made up of 11 chapters. Essentially, there are a few chapters in the middle that are centered around exercises that the author wants you to complete, and these actually make up the biggest part of the book. However, outside of these chapters, there are all kinds of useful other ones that are on the subjects of job hunting, interviewing, negotiating for salary, writing a resume, and all kinds of other subjects. The audience for What Color is Your Parachute is basically anybody who is in the job market one way or another. So for me, this is people that are looking for jobs, people who currently have jobs, people who don't have a job, people who are hiring people, so employers, and even people who are thinking of starting their own business. Okay, so to talk about the things that I like about What Color is Your Parachute, one thing is that this book is chock full of resources. So if you're reading about a certain subject and you want to know more about it, chances are good that the author has also included some sort of a link to a website or information for an organization where you can go and get more information about that. So the author does a really good job of making sure that you have all of the information that you need, and if it's not here, the author directs you to a place where you can probably find it. I also really enjoy how the author throughout the book kind of functions as something of a cheerleader or a coach for you to find work or to reach whatever goal you're trying to achieve. They use very inclusive language where they're not making assumptions about you or your situation. The author does a really wonderful job of essentially pointing out all of the ways that you can look at the situation in front of you as an opportunity and as something that you can learn from and grow from, and as a way that you can find your place in life and find the work that you really want to do. At every turn, the author was saying, you can do it, and here's how you do it, and if you get stuck, do this. And I really appreciated seeing that. I also really like how this book is very realistic. The author talks about the reality that the most qualified person doesn't always get the job, and that sometimes people need to play the game with the job market. Sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. The author also does a great job of pointing out that there are fraudsters out there and that you need to watch out for them. For example, there's people online who may be suggesting that they can help with your resume, or they can be a career coach, or they can find you a job, or they're a headhunter or something. You go and look those people up. Make sure they are who they say they are. Make sure they're not trying to fraud you or pull a scam over you. The author suggests that when you're looking into a company that you may be interested in working at, look them up. See who works there. If they say that they're a diverse workplace and that they're committed to diversity, look them up on LinkedIn. See how many people work there. See if the people who work there are actually diverse. It's a very good idea, and the book definitely is not missing out on using the internet as a tool to collect information and to conduct due diligence. And be aware that employers are probably looking at you, and that if you have an online profile or an electronic footstep, an employer is probably going to look you up before hiring you. They're going to look on Facebook. They're going to look on LinkedIn. If you have a blog, they'll look at that. They'll try to find you any way they can, just so that they can get more information about you, so that they can make sure that you're a good hire. You need to put yourself in the mindset of the employer when you're seeking a job. The number one thing that an employer wants to do is make sure that you are not a risk, meaning that it's not going to be a waste of time to hire you because they're later going to find out that you're not good for the job, or you're not making the money, or you're not performing, or that there's some reason that they shouldn't have hired you. So I think that these are the kinds of observations that the authors make that convince me that they really know what they're talking about. They really are attuned and alive to what's going on in workplaces and what's going on in the job market. And it's convinced me that this book really does have a well-earned reputation. For people who are looking for jobs, this book provides all kinds of information about potential situations you may find yourself in where you need to overcome hurdles that you are having with respect to getting a job. All kinds of issues that people may have, which may or may not prevent them from getting a job, but a person may even think that it's preventing them from getting a job. And the book provides really solid advice and really solid strategies for how to put your best foot forward, how to present the best you to employers so that you can get those interviews and ultimately get that job. The book also really tries to ingrain a strong sense of self-confidence and make you realize that unless you are really desperate and you really need a job now, that any job interview is a two-way street, and that you are interviewing the employer just as much as they are interviewing you. And you are deciding, is this a place that I actually want to work? Do I actually want to spend my time with these people? Do I actually want to spend my time doing this work? So I really enjoy how the book takes a position that is really on your side and really helps you know that you should have confidence and that you should have self-value and that you should feel that it's just as important that the fit be right for you as it is for the employer that the fit be right for them. The authors in this book also really play a fantastic game of balancing out respect for you, the reader. They say in a few places that they know that you're busy and that they know that you don't necessarily want to spend your time writing essays about yourself and doing all kinds of exercises, and that you really just want a job now, probably. However, the book, I think, wisely suggests that sometimes you need to put the work in to get the results that you're looking for. And this book contains all sorts of exercises that they suggest that you complete so that you can really learn about yourself and really know about the places that you want to go, how much money you want to make, where you want to live, what kind of work you want to do, what your purpose is, what kinds of people you want to work with, and all kinds of other important things. So that's something that I really like about the book. They don't sugarcoat the fact that sometimes you have to put in the work, and with this book you may have to do some of that. If you want to just read this book and not do the exercises, I think you would still learn a lot, but if you do the exercises, you'll get even more value out of it. Throughout the book, there's all kinds of different mentions about the traditional model of finding a job, but the book is also really up to date and talks about modern ways that you can find work. It talks about ways that you can use any number of newer kinds of platforms to find work and to do things that may tide you over for now. It may be the kind of work that you can do that will be the in-between work that you need until you find your next job, or it may be work that satisfies you and maybe the work that you ultimately want to do. So there's a great mention of all kinds of new ways that you can find jobs. There is plenty of discussion about how you should be using LinkedIn, what you should and shouldn't do with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all kinds of social media platforms, and that was a really good thing to see. I was initially a bit skeptical, and I thought that perhaps this book was going to kind of be a bit traditional and a bit old in many ways, but this book actually is current right to today, and I really am happy to see that. One point that I found to be very compelling in this book is the idea that even if an employer is not offering a job or they're not publicly posting for a position, if you really know what you want and you really know that you want to work at a company, there's actually no reason why you can't approach a company and sell yourself on them creating a job for you. There's nowhere is it written in stone that only the jobs that are posted are jobs that are available. If you are able to get a company to look at you and say, wow, you are a very valuable person and we would love to create a position for you so that you can join our company, you can absolutely do that. So that may not be something that the average person thinks of doing, and it may not be something that many of us would do. However, by putting that idea forward, I really like how this book suggests how confident you should be in your job search. That if you get to the point where you really know where you want to be and you really know what you want to be doing, there's nothing that says that you can't approach an organization. So I think that that is a really great piece of advice, and I can't remember seeing that or hearing that anywhere else. In general, I find that this book has so many good suggestions that it's actually hard to keep track of them all. And I'm not even starting to scratch the surface of all of them. So I think that if a person has this book, after they read it once, they may actually want to read it again, or they may have wanted to take notes or something like that. But I can't say enough good things about the contents of this book and how useful they are. Okay, so now to discuss the things that I don't like about the book. One of the largest parts of this book is something called the flower exercise, and this exercise is actually best suited for people who have a lot of previous experience. So if a person is completing this exercise and they are in high school or just out of high school or in college or just out of college, and if they don't necessarily have a lot of experience, this isn't necessarily going to be something that is as useful for them. However, the authors have actually produced other versions of the book that are specific for these demographics, and there are different versions in the back of the book that are for different people. For example, there are versions for people in college. There are versions for people who are in retirement. There is a version for teens. With respect to this book itself, though, that is a warning that I want to give, which is that some people may read this and may not feel that it fits them, and it may not actually match their stage in life. Okay, turning to the Audible version for a moment, there were a few sections where in the book it's essentially listing very long lists of verbs or nouns or single words or phrases, and when you hear them in an audiobook, it actually comes off as being very comical. For example, on page 65 of the paperback copy, a list of 245 skills as verbs starts, and when you listen to it on the Audible version, it's actually kind of comical, because essentially what you're hearing is achieving, acting, adapting, addressing, administering, advising, analyzing, anticipating, so on and so forth. So that was a section that, for me, I was sitting there hearing this in my ear, and I was thinking, what's going on? This is sounding really goofy. I'm just hearing these words, coming one after another. So that's probably something where a book, a visual format is probably best, to actually just see the words in the columns. But because it's an audiobook version and because they need to give you the information, there's really no other way to do it. So whether it's funny or not, that's how it goes, and that's what you hear. So that would probably be the only complaint that I would have about the audio version. Other than that, like I said, the narrator does a great job and the information is presented in a really great way. It's very clear and crisp, so I really like the Audible version of this book. Also, as I mentioned, I think that the authors provide all kinds of great techniques and advice on things that people should do. However, there are some things that the author suggests that a person do that I think are fairly impractical. For example, if you meet with somebody for an informational conversation to talk about their work or their company, and if at some point in the conversation it seems pretty clear to you that there's not a fit and that you probably wouldn't want to work at the company, the authors are suggesting something to the effect of telling the person about your skills and your talents, and then asking them if they could imagine a place where you may work where you could utilize your skills and talents. And then the authors go as far as to say that if the person tells you that they don't know, that you should ask them if they know somebody who may know. So I think that that's something that's kind of impractical. I think it isn't the kind of question that most of us would ask. I think that there's actually a potential danger that it may turn people off and that you may actually be kind of burning bridges in a small way. You may never see the person again or talk to them, so it may not matter, but you may. This is maybe a person that you may encounter again in your community. You may encounter them in this particular industry, so it may not be so good to kind of go around and have interviews and then kind of turn them off with a question that's a bit untoward. I don't like how the author doesn't suggest how using LinkedIn quite heavily can actually sometimes be counterproductive. A person can spend lots and lots of time using LinkedIn, reading posts, sending messages, looking at profiles, doing all kinds of things, and get absolutely no return on investment. Like any social media platform, LinkedIn really wants users to be on the platform, be posting, be engaging, spending a lot of time there, but not necessarily getting employed. LinkedIn does have a lot of really great tools for finding a job and posting jobs and doing all of that kind of work, and I appreciate that, but in my experience, LinkedIn can also eat up a lot of time depending on how a person approaches it. So I think that the authors should have mentioned that a little bit more when they were talking about LinkedIn. Essentially, the authors talk about LinkedIn as being almost kind of a paradise or a oasis of jobs and opportunities and connections. And in a lot of ways, that's true. But at the same time, in a lot of ways, if a person's not careful, it can be just like any other social media platform where you can kind of get sucked in and spend a lot of time, not get a lot of results, and then kind of wonder what the heck happened. So it is really quite a game of figuring out where to put your resources, when to deploy them, how to deploy them. And I think that that's something that the book should have talked about a little bit. Perhaps they could even sort of do it in a table or something where they're showing, these are different competing things that you could be doing, and you need to make wise decisions about how to spend your time. Instead, the book almost kind of makes it seem as if, it's easy to just do all of the things, and sometimes it is not easy to do all of the things. Sometimes when a person is searching for a job, it can be hard to keep your motivation up. It can be hard to keep your spirits up. So sometimes you really need to pick and choose the smart things to do. Finally, my least favorite thing about What Color is Your Parachute is the way the book ends with this section called the blue pages. So these are about 15 pages that are blue, and it says that these are the original writings of Richard and Bolles. So keep in mind that Richard Bolles actually passed away at the age of 90 in the year 2017. And the book actually has a really wonderful section at the end called The Final Words from Richard and Bolles. So this is about 2 or 3 pages where Richard talks about important people in his life, the inspiration behind this writing, and there's a small section where he talks about his faith, and he says that essentially he's a private person, but that he is a person of faith, and that's very important to him. I fully respect that, and I think that that's completely appropriate and reasonable for that to be included. The blue pages, on the other hand, are about 15 pages long, and it is all sorts of stuff about spirituality and Christianity and your soul and your mission in life. And I think that that section is very likely to turn some people off. I found it to be kind of a strange side road at the end of the book, and I think that it would actually just be a stronger book if they were to take that section out. The book is already quite lengthy, as I mentioned. It's about 340 pages, so I think that if they could take out some content, these blue pages would actually be a great choice. It would shorten the book, and I think that it would help it appeal to more people. However, in conclusion, I think that What Color is Your Parachute is an absolutely fantastic book. I think that this is a resource that should be on every person's bookshelf. No matter if you're unemployed and looking for work, or if you're currently employed but looking for different work or more meaningful work, whether you are thinking about starting a company, whether you are an employer and you're looking at hiring people, if you have trepidation about how to get into the job market and you think that there are certain things about you that are going to make that difficult, this book provides all kinds of techniques. If you don't know about negotiating for salary, this book provides all kinds of wonderful information. If you need help with your resume or with interviewing, this book is also a resource for that. So there are any number of reasons why I would say that you should pick this book up. I think that you would definitely learn some useful things, and you may actually want to read it more than one time. So I really give this book my highest recommendation and think that it would do a fantastic job for you. That concludes my review of What Color is Your Parachute by Richard and Bolles with Katharine Brooks. If you liked this video and found it to be helpful, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'd like to purchase What Color Is Your Parachute, please use my Amazon link below. Thanks again for watching. As always, I'm Sean Dillman.